peace must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.
To you, and thank you so much for finding time to be with us this afternoon. The show is Diaspora Dispatches, where we get to look at the news-making headlines across the continent. Earlier on in the morning, we were looking at the COVID situation and, of course, the corruption and how far, President Uhuru Kenyatta has gone in his fight against corruption in the country, even as the cases of corruption has continued, to be taking over the headlines of the Kenya's newspapers here, especially in regards to the monies that are supposed to be going to the fight against COVID-19 in the country that has now even seen donors threatening to withdraw the much-needed support they have been giving to the Kenyan health industry, the monies that are supposed to be buying drugs for HIV and AIDS patients and also malaria drugs that now is at jeopardy. And so they're asking for President Uhuru Kenyatta to respond to this. So that is a challenge that you're dealing with here. But I think it's not only a problem here in Kenya, it's also a challenge in South Africa, it's a challenge in Uganda, it's a challenge all over the place, even the UK right now. I think there is a probe going on there over the misuse and corruption involving COVID-19 funds there. So it's all over. And we all have a stake and a responsibility to fight corruption, I think, unless and until we all bring our concerted efforts, we shall never win the fight against COVID-19, against corruption. Very good afternoon to you. My name is Miriam Ogutu. So now let's just get into the news-making headlines across the continent of Africa this afternoon. A few minutes past 3 p.m. here in Nairobi. A very chilly day, I might add. Since the morning here, I think we are in the season of short rains, and so it just started this morning. We woke up and it was bit showers here and there across the city. I don't know how the situation is in the rest of the country, but I hope you're keeping well wherever you're watching us from. So today is a Monday, meaning we have a lot to talk about, a lot of things that happened over the weekend in the continent. So let's just start. And we start with Rwanda, and Rwanda recorded 200 coronavirus cases on Sunday, the highest number in a single day since it reported its first case in March. Most of the new cases were reported in the capital, Kigali. The country has now more than 3,000 cases of the virus, with almost 1,000 of them recorded in the last 2 weeks. The fatalities from the virus now are at 12. Last week, the two biggest markets in the capital were closed for 1 week. The rising cases have led to the concerns of a new possibility of new restrictions being imposed in the capital. Rwanda was the first country in sub-Saharan Africa to impose total lockdown after confirming its first cases. We head over to South Africa, where South African students in all grades resume classes today after weeks of closure because of the coronavirus pandemic. Final year students had resumed classes earlier to prepare for the examinations. President Cyril Ramaphosa closed the schools in July after they were briefly reopened following a public outcry on rising virus cases. Monday's resumption of classes comes as the country's registers a decline in new infections. And still with staying with South Africa, and South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa has strongly reprimanded his finance minister Tito Mboweni over comments on social media on the sacking of Zambia's central bank governor. Mr. Mboweni had, in series of tweets on Sunday, challenged Zambian President Edgar Lungu to give reasons for the sacking of Deni Khalaya. He later deleted the tweets, and so in a statement from the presidency there in South Africa, President Ramaphosa said that he wishes to assure the government and the people of the Republic of Zambia that the unfortunate remarks do not reflect the views of the South African government and its people, also adding that the issue is being addressed to ensure that such an incident does not occur again. So there it is. And also Zambia's Information Minister, Dora Silia, said that they will pursue the matter diplomatically. Cross over to the Democratic Republic of Congo, where an armed group in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo has agreed to stop attacks on its ethnic rivals, the AFP news agency has reported. This comes after President Felix Tshisekedi had appealed to the Cooperative for the Development of Congo, CODECO, to stop violence. The agency reports. Now, the spokesperson did not say when the ceasefire was agreed upon. The president had sent a group of former warlords in Ituri province to convince CODECO to stop the attacks. We head over to Libya, where the powerful military force in Libya loyal to the eastern-based commander Khalifa Haftar has dismissed Friday's announcements of ceasefire by the United Nations-backed government based in Tripoli. The spokesperson for General Haftar, LNA, said the declaration was a media stunt. He said the LNA was ready to respond to any attack by government forces on its positions around the city of Sirte. Fighting in Libya between the two factions has gone relatively quiet in the past 2 months, but previous ceasefire attempts have fallen apart, with each side accusing the other of violating the agreements. And then we go to Mali, where a delegation from the West African Regional Bloc, ECOWAS, and the members of Mali's military junta say they have reached an agreement on several points after a day of negotiations aimed at returning the country to civilian rule. The negotiations expected to continue today. The military leaders have proposed a military-led transitional body to rule for 3 years with a mandate to review the foundations of the Malian state. The AFP news agency reports, quoting a source in the ECOWAS delegation. The junta has also agreed to release ousted President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta. ECOWAS has repeatedly called for Keïta to be reinstated, but thousands of Malians took to the streets of capital Bamako on Friday to show their support for the coup leaders. I don't know how that situation in Mali is going to end up now that the army junta there is not very quick to give up the power. There's even suggesting that perhaps there should be a 3-year transitional period like that we have in South Sudan, and that we have before the next elections, and that we have in Sudan. Remember, after the army ousted former President Omar al-Bashir, now they're in a 3-year transitional period, one side being led by the civilians and Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok, and the other one through the military, and it has not been a very easy ride there for Sudan. I don't know why Malians would... the soldiers there, if their aim was to remove President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta from power, why would they even think it will be okay for them to stay on? Perhaps they should have adopted, the Zimbabwean way, where the army removed former president, the late Robert Mugabe, and they were quick to retreat back to the barracks and organize for a quick reinstating a quick civilian rule. I think that would have been best for the people of Mali. And so for the army to come in there and insist now, suggest that they need a 3-year period to, we'll talk about it. I sense some trouble, because I'm sure even in that army, there must be a few soldiers who are still loyal to former president and who might have different opinions, and that might plunge a country into unnecessary chaos. So I hope that is something that they will rethink, and Mali should go back to a civilian rule as soon as possible, because 3 years, that will be, who knows. All right. Go to Madagascar, where 20 prisoners were killed in Madagascar as the authorities attempted to stop a riot in a prison in the south of the island, the Justice Ministry has said. The trouble began at the prison in Fagana at around 12 local time, with inmates splitting into 2 groups and attacking guards with stones. The ministry outlined in a statement on Facebook. They also seized a gun. Along with the 20 who were shot dead, 8 prisoners were seriously injured as authorities tried to regain control. 29 others were also recaptured by 4 local time. 31 inmates were still free, according to the Justice Ministry. So it's a prison break, if you watched Prison Break, or whatever this is, it's quite interesting there what is happening in Madagascar. How do prisoners have guns in cells? I don't understand. They're already in prison. How are they able to access guns? Do you not check anybody who is allowed to access prisoners to come and visit the prisoners? So where did a prisoner get a gun when they're already in prison? Yeah, that doesn't make any sense at all. Stones, they might have picked from outside, but a gun, that's a lot. And we go to Ivory Coast. And medical workers say at least 2 people have died during clashes in Ivory Coast following President Alassane Ouattara's decision to run for a 3rd term. They were killed in the southern town of Divo, where opposition supporters clashed with those of Mr. Ouattara. Residents said one of the dead was a teenager who died after protesters set fire to a bar. On Saturday, the governing party formally chose Mr. Ouattara as its presidential candidate. And then we head over back to Sudan, and the U.S. Secretary of State has reportedly made plans to visit Sudan as normalization of relations between the two countries continue. Mr. Pompeo's visit is to show American support for the civilian-led transitional government in Sudan. The U.S. Department of State confirmed that while in Sudan, Pompeo will meet Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok and the head of its ruling council, General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan. South Sudan has been mediating talks between armed forces groups and the transitional government in Sudan. Last week, the SPLM North and Malik Agar signed the security arrangement agreements. Now, the agreement includes the integration process, security governance in the two regions, and the tools for modernizing the Sudanese armed forces. And I have said there at time and time before, the irony about this thing going on there in Sudan, South Sudan has been mediating the talks between the government and the rebel forces there in Sudan. And South Sudan has done a pretty good job there trying to find peace and stability in Sudan. But its leadership through the president, who has managed to find peace and stability and, sort of a relatively successful mediation process there for Sudan, President Salva Kiir has been unable to do the same for his country. As we've seen, a lot of killings have continued there in South Sudan, and communal violence has really escalated to the levels where it's worrying. And President Salva Kiir has been unable to address that, but he has successfully mediated, talks in Sudan. So I have never understood, the logic behind it, I would think, but there it is. So now Sudan, Mike Pompeo, the Secretary of State for the U.S. will be visiting Sudan soon. But I think there's also a reason as to why Pompeo will be visiting Sudan, and we shall look at that very shortly. But first, let's go to South Sudan. And the United States has announced additional funds to support South Sudan's response to the coronavirus pandemic. The nearly $48 million is built on the U.S. continued investment in life-saving health and humanitarian assistance in the country. In April, the U.S. government gave $8 million to South Sudan to help prevent the spread of coronavirus pandemic. And then we head back to South Africa. A lot of news coming from South Africa, and this time, South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa has launched a scathing attack on corruption by some members of the governing African National Congress. In a letter to all its members, he referred to recent scandals of the awarding of tenders for equipment to deal with coronavirus, as well as accusations of awarding jobs as favors and the issue of state capture. Now, the president said, we must acknowledge that our movement, the African National Congress, ANC, has been and remains deeply implicated in South Africa's corruption problem. And that is the truth. And I am happy that President Cyril Ramaphosa is acknowledging this. And he added that though there are others involved in the problem, the ANC does not stand accused number one. One issue he highlighted was local ANC leaders using food parcels meant for the poor to buy political favors from those people in the branch of broader community. Quite interesting, but I'm not really surprised. All right, and then we go back to Sudan as to why maybe Mike Pompeo could be visiting Sudan. This is just my theory. But Sudan's Prime Minister said on Saturday that the country was ready to cooperate with the International Criminal Court, so those accused of war crimes in Darfur appear before the tribunal, a list that includes ousted President Omar al-Bashir. All right, so now you understand why Mike Pompeo it could be, wanting to come to Sudan and try to look as if the U.S. was trying to normalize its ties with Sudan. And now you see these are the news here where Sudan's Prime Minister is now saying that Sudan will be ready to cooperate with the ICC. And Bashir, who has been in jail in Khartoum since he was toppled after mass protest last year, is wanted by the ICC for alleged war crimes, genocide and crimes against humanity in Darfur in a conflict that killed an estimated 300,000 people. The government reached a deal with rebel groups in February, calling for all 5 Sudanese ICC suspects to appear before the court, but Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok had not previously publicly affirmed Sudan's position. All right, and I've been saying this because that issue of ICC being delivered to the ICC, Omar al-Bashir being delivered to the ICC has been the carrot that the U.S. has been dangling on the head of Sudan, saying if you want us to resume proper diplomatic ties, then you have to deliver our former President Omar al-Bashir so that he can face these charges in the ICC. And as we all well know, some of the officials, especially on the military side, who right now are part of the transitional government, were part of, the officers who perhaps have been highly mentioned, in those atrocities that happen in the ICC. So should the protester side, the civilian side, the Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok side decide to do that, the army side will not agree to this, and that might jeopardize, this transitional government efforts in trying to have a stable Sudan, so that after 3 years they're supposed to be, having an election. I think now it's 1 year since it was formed. It was formed last year in August, and so 2 more years to go, transitional government, and then they can form their own. They can go back to voting now, but It's really quite interesting there. And now Mike Pompeo is coming, and the Prime Minister there is saying, we might actually cooperate with the ICC. In the previous times, they've just said it in passing, but there was no serious commitment on the government side. So I don't know if this time really they really mean that they will do that. But that is yet to be seen, because I doubt whether the army side will agree to this, because a lot of these top army officials in Sudan were implicated or will be implicated during the trial should Sudan decide to hand over Omar al-Bashir to the ICC. But Mike Pompeo is coming, and I'm sure he'll come with a lot of goodies, shiny stuff, and continue dangling if you want. And also, if you want Sudan to be removed in the list of the countries, the blacklist of the countries that are supporting terrorism across the world, then you have to hand over this person. And I don't know if that is something that they will be willing to do. Let's finish with Biafra. And at least 2 people were killed in a clash between Nigeria's state security officers and a group campaigning for the secession of the part of the southeastern Nigeria known as Biafra, security services said on Sunday. The incident between the Department of State Services agents and members of the indigenous people of Biafra took place in the southeastern Nigerian Enugu state. According to DSS, that is the Department of State Services, 2 of its personnel were killed in what they called an unprovoked attack, while IPOB in a statement said 21 of their members were killed and more than 40 others arrested after security forces stormed one of their meetings. All right. So DSS did not immediately respond to queries on IPOB members' deaths. IPOB described itself as a peaceful group and denied killing any DSS agents. IPOB leaders have called for secession in the region where tensions have simmered since a Biafra separatist rebellion sparked a civil war between 1967 and 1970 that killed an estimated 1 million people. In 2017, Nigeria's armed forces designated IPOB as a terrorist organization after it stepped up calls for secession. So that is just one of the things that one of our viewers here earlier on in the morning show, can't remember his name. His name was Michael, somebody I can't remember, but I think he was from He was from Biafra, and he brought this into our attention. I think I told him I shall be having this news this afternoon. So what happened from the news that we've been gathering, and I'm not sure. So if you're out there and you know what really happened there, is IPOB was trying to organize for a meeting, and it was termed a peaceful meeting. I don't know the purpose of the meeting. It's not very clear, but so the security agents there, the Department of State Services, raided these meetings, and from that raid, it is said that 21 members of IPOB were killed, and also 2 police officers were killed. But what is interesting is that Nigerian security forces are acknowledging the killing of 2 of their police security officers, but did not acknowledge the death of the 21 members of IPOB. And so this is something that has hit headlines. I think it was in all the major news outlets there in the world. So I think things like this are what have been pushing for, the IPOB to even want to secede from Nigeria, because police officials or officers or any law enforcement, I think they're taught in proper ways of dispersing even a crowd, like crowd management and things like that. And killing should be the last resort, all right? So 21 people from the IPOB, were killed, and of course 2 police officers are also said to have been killed in that. So I don't know. This is not very good, especially when you're seeking to find a peaceful, resolve of issues that have continued to plague that side of the country, So now I think even the agitation of secession, this will just fuel it and catapult it to next levels, because if we can't even agree, you can't allow us to sit and deliberate and have a meeting. And if I told you how to disperse the meeting and break the meeting, then there are proper ways that you can do that will ensure both the police officers are safe and also those people are not harmed. But in this case, we've seen 21 of these, IPOB members were killed, and also 2 police officers were killed, and more than 40 others have been arrested by the security forces there. Let me know what is the latest in regards to this story there. And also in regards to the number of confirmed cases in Africa in COVID-19 this afternoon. Right now we stand at 1,193,000 cases, 286, and the death toll in the continent is 27,847, and recovery so far stands at 910,233, and the global statistics right now is at 23,615,616, and the global deaths are at 813,048, and the global recoveries right now stands at 16,105,226. So this incident that happened there yesterday, it happened yesterday there in Nigeria. In the southeastern part of Nigeria, there were 21 members of IPOB and 2 security personnel were killed, and 40 others now have been arrested by the police there. What happened? What is the latest? Let me know what is happening. All right, so thank you so much. And Raxton, thank you. It's been a while. I haven't seen you here for a long time. I think you watch us from the US. Thank you so much for joining. Ina Hassan, a very good afternoon to you. Now, Ina, I was really hoping you could join so that we can have this conversation, and the rest of you, thank you so much for joining. So this junta in Mali that became a savior there, apparently, even after the ECOWAS leader went there and said, we want President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta to be released and for him to be reinstated. So when Malians heard that ECOWAS wants President Keïta to be reinstated, they went back to the streets on Friday to protest, but this time in support of the military, saying, no, we'd rather just have you guys. We do not want Keïta to come back and be the president, all right? So after that, now the military has come out and said, the leader there has come out and said, now what we need is 3 years of transitional period. And I'm thinking, no, that was not part of the deal. I don't think that is what the people wanted. So let me get us the reason as to why they think them being at the helm, the leadership of Mali would be a good idea, and the reasons they're giving us as to why they want to stay there the next 3 years, which I think is not a very good idea. And perhaps they should adopt, the situation as what happened in Zimbabwe, where the army took power. President Mnangagwa was there because he was initially the vice president, and then after that, elections were held very, very fast. That is what should be happening. Asking for 3 years, I think they're trying to do what happened in Sudan. But what you have to understand in Sudan is that Sudan was a very militarized country, and President Omar al-Bashir led by the military, okay? So military had a bigger space in terms of the leadership of Sudan, okay? So after they ousted him, I think it only made sense that, they're also part of that, even as they try to find a transition, which is 3 years. I think 2 years just elapsed. They formed that transitional government in August last year. So 2 more years to go. So this Mali junta, the military there, they thought this is the model we need to follow. And I'm thinking, that's just a bad idea. That is just a bad idea. I don't know. Personally, I don't think that is perhaps what the people of Mali wanted, and I don't think Malians are prepared to be under a military rule because they might not even know what that will look like. So they're gambling with such a a very unforeseeable future there. But for them to have gone out in the streets on Friday to protest against, ECOWAS' idea of them demanding that President Keita should be reinstated also, I think must have given the military some confidence to think that the civilians in Mali would want them to stay longer, at the helm, at the leadership helm of that country. So this is what they said. The military leaders have proposed a military-led transitional body to rule for 3 years with a mandate to review the foundations of the Malian state. The military has no business reviewing the foundations of any state, as it is in the 21st century and in a growing democracy like we see across Africa. The reviewing of a state should be left for the people, all right? Redo the constitution, let the people vote on a referendum or things like that. That is how you review a state. I don't know. Maybe I'm not a political scientist, but I'm just trying to understand how the military thinks they have a role in terms of reviewing the foundations of a state, and that this state being Mali, because as we speak in the 21st century, a lot of constitutions, even in Africa, have given more power to the people. So people have the say, in how they want to be led. And so that should be left for the people of Mali. So for the military to think they want to stay there so that they're able to review, the foundations of the Malian. Like, what do they even mean by wanting to review the foundations of the Malian state? I think this is a bad idea. I think this will backfire. I think the people of Mali might not be prepared to be under a military rule. Let's look around and see how that has worked. And also that will mean Mali will be out of the African Union for the next 3 years because, if a state is being led under the military rule, you cannot be part of the African Union because that is one of the conditions. It has to be civilian-led rule. So I don't understand. Raxton. So you've been hibernating, hiding away from the pandemic. Oh, pandemic. Okay, I get that. I get that. I hope you're safe though. I hope you've been fine. A pandemic. Okay. Yeah, over here we've been planning a lot with the pandemics. I get what you're saying. I can't go what you're saying. You're watching and listening from Buffalo, New York in the U.S. Moitos, you're saying Nigeria police and military are killing Biafrans every day. So that news, that incident that happened there yesterday in the southeastern part of Nigeria, where 21 Biafrans were murdered, but also 2 police officers were also killed there, and over 40, I think, Biafrans are under police custody as we speak. What was happening? What was the essence of that meeting? What was the reasons as to why I've not been able to find out? But it is said that the police stormed a meeting that was organized by the Biafrans, and out of that, now 21 people have died, and 2 police officers have also died. 21 Biafrans have died. 2 police officers have also died, and over 40 others are being held by the police. So please let me know the new developments on this story so that we can see what's really happening there. And Onayas Ndoro, you're saying you're watching from Zimbabwe. Thank you so much. Ina Hassan, a very good afternoon to you. And the rest of you, Elvis Nonyong, you're saying, what about the people of former British Cameroon, aka Ambazonia? Well, a lot has been happening there in Ambazonia. And today we were looking at, I don't know which Facebook page of somebody that is claiming to be the president of, the Republic of Ambazonia. I can't remember his name, but he's not the Ayuk Tabe that we all know is one of the leaders there. And so, all right. It's quite interesting. Oyosi Tosi, you're saying this is a lead. What lead? What happened, Tosi? Do you know what happened, and what is the latest in terms of that story in what those killings that happened there in Nigeria? So now these army officials here in Mali saying they want to stay over, saying that because, ECOWAS leaders are led by former president of Nigeria, Jonathan Goodluck, has been the one leading the mediation peace process, the mediation there in Mali, and they started even the ouster of President Boubacar Keïta, but that was not very successful now because, after all, still Mr. Keïta was removed there, but, they forced him into several concessions that were not enough to appease the protesters, and so the army came in, swooped in, and removed President Keïta, who is still being held by the military together with his prime minister. And ECOWAS have been asking for him to be released, but I think when they said that release him and reinstate him, the people of Mali say no, we're not having that. You can release him and take him wherever, even give him asylum to whatever place that he will go and be safe, but we do not want him to be the president. So after ECOWAS suggested that Mr. Keïta, former president of Mali, should be released and reinstated, the people took to the streets on Friday to protest that suggestion there, that suggestion by ECOWAS. But I don't know, are they okay with the military being in power for 3 years? Because remember, these are people. And as we were looking at the causes and reasons for coups here in Africa, we were having that conversation on Friday. And one of the key things that even AU said happens to be the reasons as to why, there is an increase in coups. And coups find a ripe environment here in Africa. Is one of the key things is the poor governance, structures in this continent. So now, I don't know how you feel about this military taking over Mali. I'm nervous for that because you cannot come from democracy and then you go back to military. That might not augur well, because a military rule is different from a civilian rule. And I think as much as we see an increase, and I think this is a conversation, if you're watching us on Friday, then we were talking about this, about the role now of the military in Africa and how they find themselves as the people who are now safeguarding the democracies in Africa. But in the case of Mali, I think, from my own personal opinion, maybe Malians are happy with the military taking over and saying they will stay there for the next 3 years. And maybe they might find out that power is actually very sweet. So how about we just extend and we just become a military state forever? I mean, it could happen like that. Because for them to even suggest, when they ousted the president, Keïta, they said, our intention is just to hold the country together and have, an election as soon as possible. The last time I checked. And now they're coming here and they're telling us, I don't think so. So I think we need 3 more years because we need to change. We need to review the foundations of the Malian state. The foundations of the Malian state should be left for the people of Mali to decide and to review through a constitutional change, through a constitutional review, that is how you review, the foundations. You realize some of these laws, were made maybe a long time ago. The situations then were different, and they might not be working or addressing the things that they should be addressing in the current state as it is now. So perhaps we need to review some of these things. Like Kenya, we did here. We review our constitution in 2010. We promulgated a new constitution. We are still struggling even to adopt it, and even right now as we speak, the country is speaking speaking about another possible referendum, so that some of the articles there can be changed to accommodate whatever it is that should be accommodated. That is according to a political class, right? So that is how you change the foundations of you review, because how else are you going to review the foundations of the Malian state, and how are they suggesting that they will go about this? I think this is dangerous. I think this should not be the case, and I think Malians should go back to that street and say, army, This we are happy you helped us remove Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta, but we don't want you to overstay your help. We don't want you to take our. We don't, because the good faith that we had and the support you've given us, and we appreciate that. But you don't want you to overstay that now. Don't overdo that. So it's time that you walked quietly back to the barracks and do what you're supposed to be doing as the army, and let us just continue our democratic space and have elections as soon as possible. Have structures in place for that. But as it is now, I think this is very dangerous. And Malians should be nervous for this. You do not want to be under a military rule. Have they seen countries where, military are ruling? Have they seen how those countries work? I don't think that's what they want. Or maybe, I don't know. So, of course, ECOWAS there came out and said they've agreed on a couple of key points, but they do not agree on some. And I think this is just one of them. And how this military-led transitional body, how do you have a military-led transitional body? Will it consist of civilians of opposition? Because I know the leader, the imam who's leading the protest there, what is his name? Forgotten his name. He said he's not interested in any political post, so he's not vying. He does not want him. He was just speaking and protesting out of the things that he saw were not working right in Mali, and so he felt he had a responsibility to use his influence to speak against and to demand for the resignation of President Keïta, but he did not want to be part of any political activities in that country. So he came out and said he's not even interested to run for any post in the country as a president or otherwise. That was not his intention. His intention was to demand accountability from the government of Boubacar Keïta, who could not give that, but also to have him, be removed, or to have him resign, which eventually he was forced to do so by the military. So I don't know who will be working with this military, as they say here, that there will be a military-led transitional body, which I think is a bad idea. Somebody should go talk to these young men and tell them this is not good. Mali, as much as it is a struggling democracy, but nevertheless, it should be encouraged. I think democracy should be encouraged, and perhaps the next leader should learn from what happened to Boubacar Keïta there, and learn to respond and address the needs and the calls of the people appropriately, and not with the amount of force that we see in there. And that, I think, is the problem that we see here in the continent. You see the protests happening and the way our leaders respond to these protests. And sometimes, as much as there has in a lot of protests, sometimes there are elements of external forces behind who are sponsoring, who are pulling strings behind. But sometimes also, and a lot of times, some of these issues that the protesters are calling to be calling to the attention of the leadership, sometimes are really legitimate, and we see a lot of the leadership in the continent will dismiss it, and sometimes maybe always, majority of the times being met by unnecessary force, and that is what has brought President Boubacar Keïta to where he is today. And now we see another situation building up there in Ivory Coast. President Alassane Ouattara deciding to go for a third term, as much as his party endorsed him. And now I'm beginning to have some doubts. Remember the Prime Minister that the party had proposed for him to take over and have the presidency and run for the presidency with Alassane Ouattara's, party ticket. He died while receiving treatment. I'm not saying anything, but I'm just saying, is there any other person who could have replaced, the late Prime Minister and take over the reins? Are there only two people, the late Prime Minister and Alassane Ouattara? Because Alassane Ouattara is going against the constitution of Ivory Coast to run for another term. And the chaos that ensued, when he was coming to power after President Gbagbo did not want to leave and all of that. And we know what happened. So Alassane Ouattara now is also creating another situation just barely 10 years ago. Did he not learn anything from Gbagbo? Did he not learn anything from what happened when he was coming to power? And now he's creating a situation that has the potential of throwing back Ivory Coast to where it was a couple of years ago by him insisting on going for a third term that is against the constitution of Ivory Coast. And so there has been some protest, and as we speak right now, 2 people have died, and they died during clashes in Ivory Coast following President Alassane Ouattara's decision to run for the third term. So things that happened, I think, on Saturday, and immediately it was made official. Ivory Coast people who are not very happy with this decision took to the street to protest, and then they were met with a lot of force, and now 2 people are dead. And this is a situation that we shall be observing very, very keenly. Ivory Coast is set to go to its elections sometimes in October. I'm not sure the date. Tanzania is having its elections, I think, October 28th. Ivory Coast, it's October, but I'm not sure of the date. So in just a few months' time, Ivory Coast will be going for its elections, and Mr. Ouattara has decided to go against the spirit of the constitution of Ivory Coast and run for a third term. And that is where we find ourselves in this continent. Our leaders usually feel as though they're supposed to just stay there forever. They can't leave. And even in this contest, there's also another president who was president. I can't remember his name earlier. He served Ivory Coast in the 90s, and the guy is like 87 years old, and he's coming back to run again for presidency there in Ivory Coast. And you wonder, do we not have any other people who possess the qualities and who can actually take over the mantle of leadership outside of these few, clique or few people who think they're the ones who should be given the mandate to lead there? If you are president and you why don't you just retire? Just go somewhere and relax. Why do you have to come back years later to try to run for the presidency? And I have nothing against age. I think there are a lot of, older people who are that we could use their experience and their wisdom. But come on, you're 87 years old. Can you just retire and enjoy your sunset years quietly? Why do you want to come back and still run for presidency in a country that you already are president 2 years back? Why don't you just retire quietly and enjoy your retirement? What is wrong with the people in this continent, the political class sometimes? It's a lot. All right, very well. So this news from South Africa, where, President Cyril Ramaphosa has strongly reprimanded his finance minister, Tito Mboweni. Now, this Tito Mboweni challenged President of Zambia, Edgar Lungu, who fired his central bank, his central bank governor of the Central Bank of Zambia. All right. So he was fired without the government of President Lungu giving so much explanations. Had his own reasons. So he fired the guy. So this Minister of Finance in South Africa decided no. despite of the problems we're having here in South Africa in regards to COVID-19 and insecurity and the theft, that now Cyril Ramaphosa had to write to the ANC members and say ANC is the one which is propagating a lot of corruption in South Africa, which is the truth. They took over, and after taking over, they really have not worked in improving the lives of Black South Africans, and we see things when things happen like xenophobia and things like that. And I think Cape Town is just one of the most unsafe places to be on the earth. I think there's another research that was done, and that found that. So South Africa has so much to deal with as we speak. So Zambian president decides to fire the central bank governor, and this South African finance minister decides, no, I don't know, South Africa has taken over as the prefect of the southern part of Africa. We see the way they've been so much into Zimbabwean matters, and whatever that has been happening sometimes requires us to speak up, and we see the way they've been also involved in other matters across there. So this South African minister went and tweeted and demanded for the Zambian president to give reasons as to why he sacked his, central bank governor, which I think was just out of order, because you are a minister in another country. So essentially, when you're speaking, especially on matters like that, one would assume you're speaking on behalf of your president, which in this case is Cyril Ramaphosa. So he tweeted demanding for President of Zambia, this South African finance minister, he tweeted demanding that President Edgar Lungu give the reasons as to why he found it necessary to sack his central bank governor out of order completely. And so now President Cyril Ramaphosa his office had to come out and write an apology and things like that. And the minister, was asked to delete the tweets, which he did. And I think this time, this person, Minister Tito Mboweni, he outstepped, his mandate there. I think he overstepped there. Because I think whatever reason Zambian President Edgar Lungu gave, I think it's under his prerogative to hire and fire some of these public officials, and another minister from another country should not be poking their nose too much into another country's, internal affairs as it is. So there it is, but that also, it's quite interesting there. Okay. All right. Let's just read some of this. Raxton is saying, let history be written correctly. How the Islamic Zoological Republic of Nigeria sponsored cooperative Saudi Arabia to steal Biafran resources and been poking Biafrans to the point of war. All right. Okay, so I understand why you would say that, but I think Boko Haram, in that regard, because Boko Haram has been causing a lot of mayhem there in Nigeria, and the President, Buhari, has been very reluctant in the manner in which he's been responding to the issue of insecurity there in Nigeria that is affecting a lot of people there in Nigeria who are not even the Muslims themselves in the north. They are getting affected because the insecurity has gone out of hand. And we've seen Boko Haram attacking even states which are majority Muslim in the continent. So we can't really say it is an Islamic problem. I think Boko Haram, we have to understand, as much as they associate with Islam as a religion, but Boko Haram ideology differs with what the main Islam religion actually teaches. So they are extreme. That's why they're called extremist groups. So having said that, yes, there have been some targeted attacks in some parts of Nigeria, and like what happened there yesterday, I think is unacceptable. And I don't know how much in regards to how that story has developed, but if you have any more information about that meeting that led to 21 Biafrans dying and 2 Nigerian police officers dying, then please kindly share with me. I'll be happy to read it to the rest of the world. You're saying we need to find a way to make presidency less attractive, but then it will be of no use, since they will continue to ignore those efforts anyway. I tell you, I don't know if there's if you can win as a citizenry of this continent, because, hey, our leaders here, the things they show us sometimes, it's quite interesting. So that story of Sudan, we've seen there. Mike Pompeo is set to visit Sudan, and also very curious how the government of Sudan, led by the civilian side, led by Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok, came out and said, we actually are going to cooperate with the ICC in handing over some of these people that have been wanted there over the atrocities in Darfur. And one of them, of course, is the former President Omar al-Bashir. And that is something that the U.S. has been wanting and seeking to do, and has been holding it the head of Sudan. If you want us to do this, then you have to hand over al-Bashir and others over what happened in Darfur. So quite interesting there. And those are the stories I had for you today. I thank you very much. And what else? Is there something that I have? All right, I think we've exhausted a majority of that. Of course, that story in Ivory Coast we shall be following up for you. And I don't know if Alassane Ouattara is even seeing what is happening in this continent, because he's acting with impunity like this because he believes the army is on his side. Has he not seen the men who ruled with the military in this continent, what happened to them? President Robert Mugabe is a very good example. Omar al-Bashir is a very good example. Abdelaziz Bouteflika of Algeria, who was ousted last year, is a very good example. Egypt president, remember, is a very good example. I don't know if they ever learn at all. I don't know. The president of Tunisia, Libyan president, former president, now, dead. Gaddafi, he led by the military. So sometimes even the people that you think you use to protect yourselves with, sometimes they turn against you, and we'll see them coming out and saying, right now we are standing with the people. And then in the case of Mali, they decide we are standing with the people and we'll hold you. We'll continue holding you there, and now we are demanding that you're given 3 years to review the foundations of the state, which is madness. I don't agree with that decision there by the military of Mali. I think at the end of the day, Malians will decide what's best for them. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much. You meet here tomorrow, I think 10 a.m. East African time, for the latest news in Kenya and across the world. My name is Miriam Gotu. A very good afternoon to you.
Peace must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.